How often do you think about the Oscars? About how many Oscar-winning films there are and how many you've seen? Yeah, there's a few famous Oscar-winning films that we've all seen. You know, The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Titanic. I'm King of the World, all that stuff. But the Oscars have been running since 1927. There are currently over 1,000 films, feature-length films, which have won an Oscar. How many have you seen? I did the numbers for myself. It's not many, and I consider myself quite a movie buff. So here then is the premise of this podcast. Every episode, I and a rotating cast of two guests will randomly select one of the 1,000 films that have won an Oscar, watch it, and talk about it, with the only requirement being that one of the three people on each episode has to have never seen the movie before we talk about it. That will get difficult with Star Wars. Please note that our coverage of a movie does not constitute an endorsement of it. My least favorite movie of 2016, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, won an Oscar for Best Makeup, while my favorite movie of 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything. Please also note that our coverage of a movie is not a blanket endorsement of any or all of the people involved in it. A lot of terrible people have won Oscars. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar 20 years before he was outed as an abuser, and Roman Polanski won one 20 years after. But every film, good, bad, or in many cases mediocre, that has won an Oscar is an important part of film history just for being there. And they all, on some level, deserve a tiny bit of consideration, even if that consideration ends up concluding that it's garbage. And with all of that in mind, I'm your host, as always, Ellie McConaughey, and with me today is Callie Castle.
Hi, and I like cheese.
And Justin Frankly.
Several seconds of pantomimed silence.
And in case you couldn't guess from that introduction, also from like the title of the episode, we are here today to talk about Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, the 2005 British film that won Best Animated Feature at the 78th Academy Awards. And I was in particular extremely excited for Callie to participate in this episode because Callie is fulfilling our never having seen it before requirement. I think that you'd never seen anything Wallace and Gromit, correct?
This is correct, yes.
How do you like Wallace and Gromit?
I love them. They're so cute. I just want to smush Gromit's face.
I love Gromit. I love Wallace is great, but I just love like Gromit doing the silent straight man shtick.
I just want to smush his little face.
In particular, during the Were-Rabbit transformation, I think he does really good. Like the animators do some really good like silent work with him.
Oh, they really do.
Or like the all the different ways that they try to like lay it on, like during the big reveal when it's not Hutch, it's Wallace, and you see in his bed like all of the murdered vegetables. Just like the abject horror in Gromit's unfeeling eyes.
Gromit has feelings.
Yes, but we project those feelings onto him because Gromit is actually a concoction of modeling clay.
Bah.
The only soulless creature in the Wallace and Gromit expanded universe is Feathers McGraw.
I thought that like so obviously this is on Aardman Animation's feature, and like I was under the impression that they were kind of like endangered recently because of the company that made their clay. They are, I think, pretty much exclusively a claymation company. Am I right? Let me look at their Chicken Run, Wallace and Gromit. Oh no, wait, Flushed Away. What the fuck is that? Never heard of.
It's a movie about a rat in the sewer system that gets flushed down the toilet. There is a tuxedo on the rat. It's a whole thing.
There's a lot happening there.
Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that.
Well, we're not going to unpack any of it because, yeah. There we go. Okay, so I guess they're not exclusively a claymation company. I guess, a couple of them. Arthur Christmas. What the fuck is this? No, that is claymation.
That's also a bad film. Just,
I like claymation a lot.
And notably, Pirates, a venture with scientists.
Mm. I like claymation a lot because like it's such an arduous it's such an arduous thing to do that I feel like a lot of it takes on a charm that I just sort of always kind of am attracted to. But I'm not going to pretend that everything made in claymation is great. I still, I get shit for this opinion. I still do not like the claymation Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I find it deeply disconcerting across the board.
You're correct. You are so correct.
I'm always correct, except when I'm not.
Yeah. See, I first fell in love with claymation my senior year of high school when I first saw The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I was like,
Callie, I say this is all the love in the world. If you had asked me to guess what movie made you fall in love with claymation, I got Nightmare Before Christmas.
you said you would have guessed that.
Absolutely,
Yeah, that's on brand.
it is extremely on brand. Affectionate.
You can blame my high school science teacher. Or actually, I'm sorry, with my junior year.
Not everyone can start out with Mary and Max.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like I experienced. I don't remember exactly how old you are, but I was around the right age to get into into Nightmare Before Christmas in the middle of my goth phase.
I'm 33.
Okay, so you're only a couple. So we're the same rough age.
Yeah,
So we're both.
of the time.
Everyone here has walked by a hot topic. We understand.
Yes, yes, precisely. Speaking of hot topic, I guess there's no better place to put this. One of the movies, speaking of Nightmare Before Christmas, that this beat for best animated feature is the. I don't want to call it the follow up because he didn't direct. Its spiritual sibling, Corpse Bride, which is a movie.
I got opinions on that movie, but we're not here to discuss them.
I mean, we can discuss it. I know that a lot of Jewish people very much do not like that movie.
Yeah. I think it's pretty. I think the songs are cool, but when I learned all that stuff, I was like, we're just gonna back off for that one.
Uh, I don't think that means that it has to be. I don't. How do I put this in a way that won't get people to jump down my throat? I don't think that you have to declare something completely meritless because it's got stuff like that in it. You can
Yeah.
acknowledge the thing. One of my favorite movies of the 2010s is Cloud Atlas,
Ah.
a movie that
Mm.
I think is incredibly brilliant and speaks to me on a pretty deep level, but does also contain yellowface. Like, no getting around that.
Nuance. Let's learn nuance to society.
Let's learn nuance. You know what? That's a not that the movie we're here to talk about is a particularly nuanced film.
Oh yeah.
I like to like look over my older notes on some stuff, every so often. And I happen to open up my notes on a separation from, I don't know, like 6 months ago. Time is meaningless. We're all trapped in hell. And like that's a fairly serious film. I took like 3 pages of fairly serious notes, and then my notes on Wallace and Gromit are just like a page consisting entirely of, hey, that's a gag that's really funny. That's a bit of animation that I really like. That's a gag that's really funny.
Another way to segue from Corpse Bride is that Helena Bottom Carter is in both.
Helena Bonham Carter is in both, and to segue,
Whoa. Hold up. She's in this movie?
Yes, she's Toddington.
yeah,
What?
she plays Toddington, and Ray Fiennes plays Quartermain.
I need a moment. I need 3 to 5 business days to process the information that I have just learned.
All right, we're pausing the recording then.
See you in a few days.
She does not like Ray Fiennes. Sounds like Ray Fiennes, whereas Helena Bonham Carter does not sound like Helena Bonham Carter in this movie.
Yeah, she's sort of like doing this like the most like if Wallace is the world's most British man, then Helena Bonham Carter is like doing the most like Downton Abbey ass posh woman to have ever lived.
She really is. That's why I would not have guessed that. If you had asked me to guess which British actress is that, I'd have given you 10 others before Helena Bonham Carter.
I like Helena Bonham Carter in this movie. I think she's very funny. I think that using Helena Bonham Carter in a way that is funny is kind of like something people don't do as much anymore, which is a bummer. But that having been said, I'm sorry, Wallace should not be. You should not be doing a romance with a woman with Wallace. Your options for Wallace are A, he's gay because he's very into appearing stylish, or much better, he's ace because he only loves cheese.
Okay, listen, Ellie.
Yes,
I love
I love cheese as well, but we are not obsessed with cheese in the way that our darling friend Wallace is.
I'm Ace. I am obsessed with cheese.
Oh, true.
He was developing a whirlwind romance with that nice woman who was stealing cattle or stealing sheep in close shave.
Oh, right.
And the instant he learned that she didn't like cheese, he stopped it immediately. He immediately stopped caring about her.
That's right. I forgotten about that one. Yeah, and you know what? I'm a woman. As the ancient texts tell us, you can fascinate a woman by giving her a piece of cheese. But I'm not as into cheese as Wallace is. Actually, speaking of cheese, I have in my notes. This is one of the few non-"Hey, that's a really great gag" jokes. There's a bit where he says like, "I really do and enjoy a nice." What was the specific? Oh, he says, "I do enjoy a nice gorgonzola." That Hutch says it, and like that's not gorgonzola. I know what gorgonzola looks like. Movie. Why are you lying to me?
That's like Swiss, isn't
It was
it?
Swiss. Yes.
Bad movie. Get your cheese right.
I guess because it's Hutch. Hutch is just like saying words. Hutch is very funny to me.
Hutch is a delight.
I was like 80% of the way to suggesting you should watch some of the Wallace and Gromit shorts before watching this one. Justin mentioned that his favorite is a close shave. My favorite is the wrong trousers. And like, I just sort of like, I feel like they don't need any introduction. They do need everything you need to know about Wallace and Gromit is set up in like the opening shots.
Yeah, I did like that about this movie. I was like, oh, this is like as soon as it started, I was like, oh, this is going to be a very physical comedy movie. Like when you see the lights, you see all of this stuff happening. Like this is a very physical movie. This is going to be very bit related.
It is a very physical movie. You know, one of its two title characters literally never speaks aloud, which I like that. I like that they don't use the fact that they're doing a movie as an excuse to like we're gonna have Gromit speak aloud for the first time. Nope, nope, it's not funny then.
Well, also, I think it's just like I think it's kind of interesting in that it makes it distinguishes it from American films because an American film would do that.
Yeah, I think that like maybe not always, but I think that like recently you can sort of there's a Looney Tunes film in theaters right now, or maybe it's already gone from theaters. I didn't get a chance to see it yet. And like I've heard that it's quite good and I want to go see it, but one of the things that sort of like started to bug me about new Looney Tunes product, honestly, as far back as Space Jam, is like there were fairly consistent ways in which they used the characters, and as time has gone on, they've just like flattened them all out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I love Space Jam. Like, I had a birthday party based on Space Jam as a small child.
I asked the question, and I always ask the question. I feel like some of those questions that people don't like it when I ask. Do you really love Space Jam, or did you just watch it when you were a kid and have nostalgia for it?
I don't have a good answer to that.
There we go. And that's fine. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I still like from when I was a kid that I would not go back to now.
Space Jam is one of those films that's a very effective vertical slice of a very specific period of time.
Y-
Is it that?
Yeah, it is. It is sure that.
Like, it's specifically in the span of time when Michael Jordan was the biggest person in the universe and was also doing baseball. And they're making fun of the fact that, he was doing baseball.
And he was bad at it.
He was extremely bad at baseball. It is extremely funny to me. I watched that movie again. I don't even recall the context. I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I hadn't seen it since I was like a literal child. And I'm not into basketball, so take whatever. I don't know shit about basketball. People tell me there are basketball jokes in that movie. I don't fucking know, man.
There are.
I'm sure that I'm also told that there are an ocean of British in jokes that I'm just never gonna get in Wallace and Gromit, and that's fair. That happens. But one thing that just consistently amuses me about watching Space Jam as an adult, and like knowing the story of Michael Jordan is one, they are talking well around the reason he's not in the NBA right now. And two, and what perhaps even more importantly, they show him as a wholesome family man living in a modest 2-story house. I'm like, I don't know much about Michael Jordan, but he lived in shocking opulence.
And he was not a family man.
No. Which is, that sort of actually just, the fact that they are talking around why Michael Jordan was not in the NBA for a few years made it even funnier. But we're not here to talk about Space Jam. It never won an Oscar, and thus is. Do I want to check that? What are the odds that one of the I Believe I Can Fly or something won a fucking Oscar? If R. Kelly won an Oscar, I'm blowing my brains out. I'm just going. I'm walking into the fucking sound, man. You can't stop me.
Please don't.
No, it won nothing. No, wasn't even nominated for Best Original Song.
That is a shame. I would have liked to have heard the tone in your voice.
I mean, I was sitting here, I was 1,000. The Best Original Song category is an absolute minefield. I think it's the reason why Love Story is eligible for this podcast. Am I wrong? Which is an awful movie.
Which one is Love Story?
It's a romance movie. Love Means Never Having to Say You're Sorry, that movie. It was also a deranged big hit. It is eligible for Best Original Score. Okay. Well, Best Original Song, my point is just an absolute minefield of a category.
Like with Moulin Rouge.
Well, I don't think that was nominated because it's got...
It wasn't, and that's why it's a minefield, because they deemed that Come What May wasn't eligible.
Well, because all those songs were from elsewhere.
Well, as I've joked in the other podcasts, the Academy had to move heaven and earth to make sure that Baz Luhrmann can never win anything.
Correct. Keep that up.
Hey.
I love the man, but keep that up.
Wait, did Moulin Rouge not win anything?
I don't think so, no. We are hilariously off topic. As much as I'm fine with us being hilariously off topic, by the way, because as much as I love this movie, it is an extremely difficult movie to
break down.
Talk about. No, it won Best Art Direction and Costume Design.
Did it win?
Yeah, those are the ones it won. It was nominated for Picture, Actress, and a bunch of technicals.
But it is eligible for the pod. Oh, let's go.
I mean, I like Moulin Rouge.
I do too, and I'll fight anybody who doesn't.
Don't do that. There are plenty of fairly good reasons to not like it. It's one of those, I like this movie. Should I? Movies.
There's a review that cracks me up about it. Like, it's just a couple of lines, but God, is it funny.
But we're here to talk about... Okay, my last punchline about Best Original Song before we move back to the movie we're here to actually talk about. Best Original Song is the reason why Barbie is eligible for this podcast. It is also the reason why Spectre is eligible for this podcast. Same singer, by the way. I keep forgetting Billie Eilish won for that terrible James Bond film. Anyway, Wallace and Gromit, Curse the Were-Rabbit. I know we don't usually do plot summaries here but how would you even sum up the plot summary of this? It's a Wolfman riff, I guess, is the long and short.
Yeah, basically. In the grand tradition of Wallace and Gromit media, not being sure what the fuck Wallace's job is, they are the
humane pest control.
Yeah, they're pest control in this, they're window cleaners in something else, they're bakers in a third thing. They're every single time they've done anything, it's a different job.
Yeah.
I respect.
But because this is the first main film to expand the world, quote unquote, of Wallace and Gromit, apparently the town they live in is feverishly devoted to a large vegetable competition that's held annually. And Wallace and Gromit run a company that protects everyone else's vegetables.
It's delightful. It's charming. It's wholesome.
The opening gag is it does make me laugh because it's a tradition to have this Rube Goldberg machine of how Wallace gets ready for the day. And they all jump into the car. They're they're kidding up. They're fucking, they rocket out of there and they go down the street. They're maybe 500 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an emergency. The rabbit. Think of the rabbit.
The answer to what Wallace and Gromit do is whatever's funny. whatever they need to be doing for a job for that particular plot to work, which works a little bit better in short film form.
Than for a full length.
But you know, when I Wallace and Gromit: Curse the Were Rabbit is a feature length film. Technically, it is under 90 minutes. It is, what is it, like 85 minutes total,
Yeah, ish.
which is fine. You know, I'm not gonna say it would outstay its welcome. I love them. I could watch them do weird ass over the top animations like the fucking dog fight in the third act all day.
That was great.
I understand why 85 minutes is a good length for a movie like this.
Well, also, if it was like 10 minutes longer, this thing would have been taken another, like, what, 7 years to make?
Yes, precisely. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of very good claymation films are very dialogue heavy. You know, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a really good example. That is a very dialogue heavy movie, which means that they don't need to do as much animation. They just have them standing there talking to each other. Whereas this, I every so often I would just like, man, like the in the opening Rube Goldberg machine scene, I was like, they do a bit where like the tea flies out of their cups and back in. I'm like, man, you didn't need to fucking do that, but that must have taken you a month.
I was listening to the audio commentary, and the scene, like, after, like, the first rampage of the were-rabbit, there's, like, this, questions raised at Parliament, the townsfolk is in an uproar that this terrible thing has occurred,
Yeah,
and, like, all the directors were just, like, bitching about, like, the fact that there's a crowd scene. It's just like, this took so long. This was like a year and a half. And like we did it out of order, so we had to have these charts about who was where and what they were doing.
Oh no.
I can imagine that every aspect of this film would take just an insane amount of work.
I love the little babushkas in that scene, though. The little church scene. All the little babushka grandmas.
I really quite liked the fade between Wallace sitting in front of the row of pictures to Wallace sitting in front of those people in church. It's a very good. It's, I don't know, like it's just one of those things where I'm just like watching like, man, that shit rules. I'm my brain is cooked enough that I'm sitting here noticing cuts that I really like. Wait till we get to fucking Lawrence of Arabia. Ugh.
Anything that's claymation is one of those things where, because of the advance of technology, it's very easy to underplay like what they're doing, because not everything in this film is in camera. Like, there are some effects, there are some things that they did do through CGI, like
The dirt in the chase scene, I believe.
the dirt, the rabbits inside of the bun vacuum thing,
Hmm.
like things like that. Like, not everything is in camera, but like a frustrating amount of this film is just there. It is just in camera.
And like part of what makes it that's part of what makes claymation always just very engaging to me, especially as technology has marched on, as 3D animation has gotten so much more prevalent. You know, I like Pixar movies, but they had an effect on the industry, on the animation industry. And I don't know, just like as that keeps happening, claymation movies have gotten more and more engaging to me because like it kind of an affectation, sure, but it's a good affectation.
It's also a labor of love.
Exactly.
You have to put in so much work that you clearly care about this project.
Exactly, like someone cared enough to do this and to do it in the way that they thought would be best for it and to not compromise on that. And I think that that's always going to make a good claymation film, no, just that little extra bit more than it would be otherwise. This is a damn fine claymation film.
I like that it has a variety of body types. I like that it has a variety of facial features, and like people aren't, how do I put this without, it is not stereotypical Hollywood pretty looks. Like
Mhm.
people look like people.
I think, and I'm looking over to confirm, I think this is basically the only year at the Oscars where there was no CGI animated movie nominated.
Damn.
Well, and part of that is just because of the mechanics of the best animated feature Oscar.
Of that time, they only had like three at the time.
Yeah, the
Ah.
I don't know if you're aware of this, and I don't know if our audience is aware of this, so I'll say it anyway just to be sure. The first best animated feature Oscar was given out in 2001 to Shrek.
Which is ironic because if you failed on Prince of Egypt, you got sent to Shrek. You got Shreked.
Right, and I feel like Prince of Egypt was one of the movies that convinced them, okay, we gotta fucking do this. I don't know if they've ever indicated the specifics they were they add awards.
Beauty and the Beast, I think, was part of it because people got angry and animated film was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna make that joke.
Beauty and the Beast is a big one, but they add Oscars all the time. They added Best Makeup back in the '80s. We literally this week, the week that we were recording this, they announced they were adding Best Stunt to the Oscar finally in 2027. So,
There's another new one coming next year.
oh, see, there you go.
I don't remember what it is, but I know there's a new Oscar category coming next year. I wish I could remember what it was.
And I mentioned that Best Original Song is an absolute minefield, but it was also for a lot of years it was the Disney Award. It was you'd have a bunch of nominees and like, oh nope, Walt put out a new feature length film. Whatever songs in there is getting not the Best Original Song, and I think that like the expansion into best animated feature indicates a desire to like acknowledge that animation exists outside of Disney, even though Disney far and away has won the most if we include Pixar. Like Disney and Pixar together, I'd say they've won at least 2/3 of the best animated feature. Don't fucking quote me on that.
So the category getting added next year is Best Casting.
Best casting. Okay, see that's real solid.
I have no clue how they're going to do that, but it should be interesting.
I mean, like, not to get too far off topic again, she says, preparing to wander off topic again. But like there are plenty of movies out there that probably aren't going to win like a best acting award. Like Lord of the Rings is a really great example. Is that going to win a best acting award? No, probably not. Although Ian McKellen was nominated for Fellowship. But man, that movie's just fucking perfectly cast. Someone should go, "Hey man, this cast 10 out of 10, no notes."
Okay, I'm curious how they end up judging that, how that ends up working. I'm very excited to see that.
We'll find out. I've been like talking around the fact that this is my first note in the thing, but my first note, speaking of Helena Bonham Carter and perfectly cast movies, my first note in my notes on this movie is, man, I wish it was 2005 and I could just be amused by the dog warts joke. Man, 2005 feels like a fucking eternity ago.
It does, doesn't it?
I know that it was like 20 years, so that's a hot minute in general.
But also, it feels like 10 million years.
Yeah, it feels it was 20 years and it feels like 50. I mean, obviously 2005 is before I transitioned, which makes everything before 2020 just very squiggy in my memory. But like, man, 2005, I think this was actually no, the year I started watching the Oscars was '03, because I think it was either 76 or 75th. Yeah, it was the year Return of the King won. That was the year I first started like watching the Oscars consistently. And like the 78th Academy Awards kind of like looms over this entire podcast, and I've hinted at this being a big thing that we're gonna have to do eventually, which is, what won Best Picture in 2005, Callie?
No,
Crash.
that means nothing to me.
Oh boy. I'll drag you in on that episode.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a movie.
I gathered that, Ellie.
I really don't know how I can explain Crash.
Is that the one with like the kidnapping and the electric? Isn't there like electricity or something?
What?
It's the one where Sandra Bullock is yelling to a white guy about being a gangbanger. It's very fun.
Oh God. Okay, I'm thinking about a different movie. Okay, there's so many movies.
It's about racism. It's made by some extremely white people.
That tells you how little I know. That tells you.
If you were to like walk up to me and put a gun to my head, which don't do that. What have I ever done to you? But if you were to do that and say, "Ellie, what is the worst Best Picture winner in Oscars history?" I would sit there for a second and go, I don't know, man, probably Crash.
Oh, okay. I'll pass on that. Thanks.
It's certainly something.
I'll pass. I value my sanity. It's already hanging by a thread.
In terms of reducing people to ash, because of the time span, we are further away from the release of this film than this film was from the release of American Tail.
Ow, Justin.
Justin, that was uncalled for.
Ow. To make this a little bit lighter, because I always mention this, but Callie, very important. If someone wants to watch a movie called Crash with You, check. Is it the one about racism, or is it the one about people who get off on being in car accidents? Because the one about people who get off on being in car accidents rules.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna double check that from now on. I don't trust nobody now.
Cronenberg movie, Cronenberg Crash rules. That is the official position of this podcast.
I'm terrified now. Thanks, Ellie. Appreciate that. Mini salute.
Where do you think that lands on the Ellie what the fuck scale? Is it like an 8? Anyway, this movie, which contains no car crashes. No, wait, it does contain several car crashes. What the fuck am I talking about?
I started saying, yeah, there's like 5.
They drag a car underground for like 2 miles at one point in a sequence that must have taken the length of the average pregnancy to animate.
Something that I appreciate about this film, I was talking about earlier, is because we get to see more people who live in this world that Wallace and Gromit live in. Everyone in this reality isn't the same.
Yes.
Everyone in this reality is like something's wrong with them.
Yes.
And the only straight man is Gromit. Gromit is the only person who's like normal.
Gromit has the brain cell for the entire town.
I really liked, and I said this to Zandy, who came down to watch with me for a little bit. I really liked the bit where they like show the priest praying, and he's praying over his like eggplant so that it'll win the fucking vegetable competition. Just like 10 out of 10 there. I love that shit.
My favorite joke in this entire film is during the church scene after the first main attack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're discussing what they want to do with it. So Ralph Fiennes' character wants to shoot it, and Toddington wants to save its life. And they turn to Wallace and just kind of like, well, what do you want? Like, you know, what is your idea? It's you're the rabbit expert here, and everyone's staring at him, and he's like stammering, and Gromit like kind of gives him a nod. He's like, well, it's a big rabbit. We need a big trap. And Gromit like immediately like gives up on life. And then like the old man next to him is like, by Jove, he's got it. And like everyone starts fucking praising him, and like Gromit doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. He's just
Gromit's questioning all life decisions that have led him to this point.
Gromit fucking goes through it in this movie. I swear. He's fucking flying around that church on a wind up fucking plane in that third act again, which in a sequence that probably took about a year and change to animate.
What some of my favorite parts for me were one when Toddington is showing Wallace her garden upstairs, and she stands in front of the two. I don't know what the vegetables were, but she stands in front of them, and they're clearly supposed to be boobs.
Melons, I think.
yeah, he's appreciating her melons.
Yeah, whatever they were, gourds, melons, whatever they were. It's hilarious. And then two, when the priest rolls in his little wheelchair, and he's like, "We're all going to die." And he points to the broken window.
I love that everyone is taking this is like treating the were-rabbit, would it twere a werewolf, you know, with the lethal implications of that, when like the were-rabbit is clearly entirely uninterested in harming people. They just love their fucking vegetables that much. Except for Wallace, who cares only for cheese.
I think my other favorite bit was when Victor goes up to the cop and is like, "I don't want to cause a panic, but the were-rabbit isn't dead." And the cop takes his little megaphone and shouts into the megaphone, "The were-rabbit isn't dead!"
It's good stuff.
There were just so many great bits.
As discussed, the cop is a dickhead.
As I put in the chat, his head looks like a dick.
It does. Is part of like so one of the things I discussed with Zandy while we were watching this movie is like, is it me or is this movie just like take place like either during or immediately post World War II? Is that part of like the bit? Because like that's what it looks like visually.
It kind of does.
No, Britain just looks like that.
Britain just looks like that. Okay,
Who knows?
I'm texting the entire UK now to ask if that's what they fucking look like.
Yes. I didn't know you had the entire UK's number, Ellie.
Yeah, once you walk out of London, it becomes the 1870s. They never got past then.
Oh. I also quite liked the 14 karat bullets,
Yes.
which just, I don't even know why. That's such a dumb joke. I don't know.
It's low hanging fruit, but it's good low hanging fruit.
Like, you can even see it in the vicar's face when he's bringing it up. Like, it almost looks like he's fucking with him. You know, because he's building it up and just kind of like, yes, there's only one way to defeat the were-rabbit. Yes, a bullet. A bullet. A bullet. A bullet. Yes, a bullet. And he just fucking, like, there's like a dramatic sting each time, and like fucking Quagmire is his name. Quagmire just kind of like, yes, but like what fucking bullet? Like,
Quartermain, which is one of those aforementioned British jokes that I don't know if everyone gets. I mean, I guess Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen means that more people get it. You know what? I will say Ray Fiennes is extremely game for this movie. I have to assume that, like, I don't want to assume things about British culture, but I went and looked at what other accolades this movie won. It did win an Oscar at the British Academy Awards Film Awards. Guess what Oscar it won? What Academy Award it won there?
Best acting for Ray Fiennes, based on what you're talking about.
No,
No, I don't know.
it won Best British Film.
Like overall.
Yes. And this is not a bad year for British films. This was the year of The Constant Gardener. This was the year of the Joe Wright Pride and Prejudice movie.
Okay.
so something that I think should be conveyed, and I'm not like deep in the pulse on this, but something I do know is that British people like love Wallace and Gromit like
Right.
a lot.
That was what I was sort of getting at. I have to assume that Ray Fiennes would be game no matter what, because getting to be in Wallace and Gromit has to be like fucking huge if you're British.
Like, I don't know if this is an anecdote, but like one of the stories that I know about it is like one of the reasons that Wallace and Gromit started to get popular in America was that the directors accidentally left one of they were like doing like a press junket somewhere in like New York or whatever, and they accidentally left like Wallace and Gromit or like some of the models in the States,
Yeah.
like in a car, and the way that Britain was like reporting this was like a national emergency, like a crisis. Like they lost these fucking puppets, and like the degree and like the panic with which they were responding to the absence of these puppets caused American media to report on the degree with which that they cared, which caused American public be like, well, what is this Wallace and Gromit anyway? And so like then they started buying the fucking videos to find out. That's one of the reasons. Like that was one of the big like launching off parts.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
10 out of 10. Good pick, America. Be into Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, there are worse things. There are so many worse things. As the resident trash expert, Raccoon, I can confirm there are worse things.
I might have to give you a run for your money on that.
What if we co-team it?
We could co-team it. I think we are engaged in very different kinds of trash.
Exactly. Therefore, we co-team it.
You know, my favorite trash movie the last like 10 years is probably Life Itself. No, I will not elaborate. Deeply insane film.
Y'all know mine.
I do know yours. Although I have a philosophical disagreement with you about that one that I will explain some other time.
It's bad.
No, it's more like I don't feel like you actually like the movie. I think you like the fan fiction for the movie.
It's all the same at this point.
I disagree philosophically, which is why I said that we have a philosophical disagreement about that. But we're not talking about you spend enough time shilling for the Dark Universe pod on
I'm not
Jasmine's.
doing it this time.
So we're not doing that here. We're talking about Wallace and
For
Gromit.
once, I haven't done it.
I know. I was beating you to it.
Yeah, there wasn't a Wolfman for the Dark Universe. They wouldn't do it here. Apparently, I don't know a lot about Peter Silas, the voice for Wallace, but apparently he was in a werewolf movie of some kind, which has a similar title.
I mean, like that seems like a reasonably good bit to do. I feel like he's done. So part of the problem when I say that, like, I feel like I've seen him in something is the British film industry is 25 actors all locked in a room and they let them out on a rotation. So if you've seen any British television or movies, you've probably seen roughly everyone they have. Please don't murder me. Whatchamacallit. British listeners. Do we think we have British listeners? Not really.
The British Broadcasting Company, is that who you're referring to?
No, I was saying, like, please don't murder me for making that joke about
Ah,
about
okay, fair enough.
All three actors in Britain.
all three actors in Britain. Yes, yeah, he's in a movie called The Curse of the Werewolf from Jesus 61. One of the see, this is what I mean. Like, he's been in so much shit.
Time is meaningless.
I almost guarantee you've seen something he was in, because that's how the British film acting industry works. You know, he's probably been on at least a dozen episodes of Doctor Who, which is not to say that we don't do that too. I'm pretty sure I've been on at least 2 episodes of Law and Order. We're just a bigger country, so it takes us a lot longer to get through everyone. I don't know where I was going with that, other than to make fun of the fact that the British film industry has 25 people in it.
Something that I've noticed, and this might have not come across as much for Callie, considering this is their first main exposure to Wallace and Gromit. But I sort of went through and rewatched a lot of the stuff that I like have. I don't have like the shorts they did, where I think what is like bizarre inventions. I think that's what they're called. But I watched those stuff, the previous Wallace and Gromit stuff again. I watched this film. I watched the most recent film they did in 2024. Something that's come across to me that wasn't quite as clear when I was a kid is that Walls is kind of an asshole. He's just very inconsiderate.
He absolutely is.
He's just, he's just, he's very, he's self-centered, seems a bit harsh, but he's just very thoughtless, particularly towards Gromit.
Mm-hmm. I think that, like, part of what makes him funny is he's thoughtless, but he's not like intentionally cruel. He's just like literally too fucking stupid to realize that Gromit is desperately trying to tell him something important.
Basically, he's a guy.
I was extremely fond of, the montage at the beginning of the movie after the first capture, where they're like, showing their morning routines, and it's cute. And you know Grom Wallace is coming down, this is getting downstairs through the usual overcomplicated means, and he gets stuck in the hole, and he's like, oh, Gromit, can I get some assistance? And assistance is just a lever that he pulls out a big hammer to knock him through. I like that shit.
I swear this hole is getting smaller.
But part of what makes it funny is, like, Gromit never speaks, but he is such an extraordinarily expressive character. He so a lot of it just sort of makes it is a straight man routine, but it's a really good one. And as I said, they play his nonverbal exasperation extremely well in this film in particular. I'm extremely fond of the transformation scene where he and the other dog are basically like, "Let me in now."
Yeah, the whole time, like Philip, I think that's the name of the dog.
Mhm.
Philip is like intimidating Gromit because he can, and then the instant Wallace like transforms into the were rabbit and like lifts this giant log over his head, like Philip is like, no, 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 like no, let me in though, like let me in the car.
Gromit's like, absolutely not. You're on your own, buddy. Could have been nice.
One of the other one of the other things in listening to the commentary, I guess they like underestimated people's empathy or people's like emotional investment. But like one of the throughout the film, Gromit is also trying to be a part of the vegetable competition. He has this like prized melon
Mm-hmm.
that's like
Yeah.
3 feet long, and he uses it near the end of the film as like a distraction, but through no fault of his own, the melon gets destroyed
Yeah.
by like him crashing into it.
Yeah, like Hutch takes a wrong turn and it gets smashed.
And like he has a few seconds to like mourn the melon that died, but I guess like when they were watching people like react to the film later, it's like they underestimated that people would have like developed an emotional attachment to the melon. They're like, well, yeah, it's like supposed to be disappointing, but it's not supposed to be like sad.
I was sad for the melons. I was like, no.
I'm not sad for the melon. I'm sad because I like Gromit. And he seems sad about it.
Yeah, that's basic. Yeah, I was sad for the melon in the case and stuff like, oh, Gromit's sad, so I'm sad for the melon. Like,
There's just like I don't recall where I first saw it. It might have even been in a different Looney Tunes short, but there's like this famous like quote from supposedly from a kid who was like, I occasionally feel really bad for Wile E. Coyote. He tries so hard and he never gets what he wants. Maybe sometimes I'd like to see him get Roadrunner. And obviously that can't actually work in Looney Tunes because like if Wile E. Coyote wins, he's gonna fucking kill that bird. But like you want to see Wallace is in a similar situation. He is the hapless, silent, intelligent person who, because of the mechanics of the universe he exists in, is just going to get constantly fucked over. And like, yeah, sometimes you do want to see him win. I think that impulse is what it causes Helena Bonham Carter's character to give him to the trophy at the end because I think the audience wants to see Wallace, get a win.
you mean Gromit?
Yes, Wallace is unaware. Yes, I meant Gromit for all that.
It is somewhat of a running gag throughout the shorts, certainly, that Wallace will like congratulate Gromit for assisting, but he's not exactly shy for like taking credit for things Gromit does.
Yeah. Or like and you see it in this movie, like ordering Gromit to do stuff for him. He orders him to build the cage to hold Hutch.
Or like there was a part where he was like yelling at Gromit, "What are you doing, you mutt?" or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Be nice to Gromit."
You love Gromit. All right, you want to see Gromit get a win, so I think that like it's nice that he gets the trophy at the end. It's nice that someone goes like, "Hey man, you did all the fucking work here.
Good job.
We just got in your way.
We're sorry.
Put him in charge of the town."
Even Wallace is like, every dog has his day. Like, yeah, good.
I don't know. I mean, I love the Wallace and Gromit movies, but like one of the trepidations I had going into this episode is like I feel like there's just not a whole lot to talk about in it. It's not like a thematically complicated film.
You mean like how we spent half this episode off topic?
Well, yes, to be fair, but we do that regardless of the episode. I can't think of a single episode we were on topic more than a third of the time.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, that is like one of the things. So, like, I don't mind this film, and like, in terms of like technical achievement, I would understand why it would win. But of the films that were nominated for that year, like, do I like Howl's Moving Castle more? Of course I do.
Howl's Moving Castle is a more complicated film. It is in the weird position. Honestly, I'm going to compare it. This comparison is going to sound completely insane until I explain myself. The movie I'd compare it to is a movie that's like just hitting VOD right now. It's called Mickey 17. Stay with me. And the thing about Mickey 17 is that it's a great movie, but it's made by Bong Joon Ho, who has like fucking out of the park movies all the time, Parasite, Memories of Murder, The Host. And so, like, is it a really great movie? Yeah. It's a home run. It's an inside the park home run. Is that a real baseball thing? One of you must know.
Yes.
Yes, that's very much a thing.
Okay. Okay. Not crazy. I probably got that from Seinfeld, if I'm being honest. I'm bad at sports metaphors. But, like, it doesn't matter how good your inside the park home run is. When everyone's used to watching you knock it into the parking lot, it feels like a letdown. And, like, that's kind of the position Howl's Moving Castle is in. Is it an amazing movie? Yeah. This is the guy who did Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, in his filmography, do I like Porco Rosso more? Do I like Castle in the Sky more? Do I
Mhm.
like Nausicaa and Valley of the Wind more? Yes. But, it's still Howl's Moving Castle, right? In comparison, and with this film, Wallace and Gromit is like certainly like I guess people could try to argue that, well, even the other films are like, even the shorts are like that, but Wallace and Gromit is very much like a kid's thing, right? It sort of feels like a thing for kids.
Yeah.
A lot of the jokes in this were for like, it leans kiddie or it leans, it's not a complicated film, as you're saying.
Which, I occasionally wish that the Oscars would, like, be more open to adult animated films? Absolutely. It took them until, God, what was it? Like, let me look at it. Till the 2015 to nominate an R-rated animated film for Best Animated Feature. But, like, I feel like the animated feature is always going to be dominated by kids movies, and I'm also like, I also feel like the Oscars do that thing, especially with movies like with awards like the animated feature, where they've been pretty open about the fact that a lot of the voters don't watch all of the nominees and just kind of go off vibes, which is how Brave beat Paranorman. No, I will never stop being sore about that. Thank you very much. And, like, Miyazaki had won, what was it, 2 years before this, 3 years before this, with Spirited Away, which is a better film than Howl's Moving Castle. So I think that was kind of like the vibes, like, okay, he's got his, we can give this to this other one. Miyazaki's probably retiring soon. We said, laughing to ourselves. Did he win for? He did win for Boy and the Heron, like 20 years later.
Yeah, it is funny that Miyazaki has three "This is my final film for real this time" films.
He does.
We respect it.
We do. I think you should call it with Boy and the Heron. That's a really good career ender, I feel. But no one consults me on anything except, I guess, my podcast? Question mark.
I consult your opinion on things, Ellie. I think you're an expert on Carmilla.
Fair. You know what? I will take that. I will take that to the bank. This is now a podcast about Carmilla.
Queen of the Wastes.
Do we need hot chocolate for it?
No, we need blood.
Well, she drinks hot chocolate in the book.
She also drinks blood in the book.
Well, duh. ¿Por qué no las dos?
We're getting off.
I'll go get a bus and start driving in the desert.
What are you referencing, Justin?
Carmilla, Queen of the Wastes.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
I haven't either.
You just send me everything about this immediately. We are wandering back off topic. I wanted to look over. I mean, like, we already talked about Howl's Moving Castle. We already talked about Corpse Bride, and it wasn't nominated. Animated films are very rarely nominated for anything else. And the 78th is a year that I feel like I'm gonna be wanting to talk about a lot. It's got a lot of really good stuff in there. It's got Syriana. It's got Brokeback Mountain.
Oh,
There's
God.
King Kong. That's certainly a thing.
I guess another thing. I guess the thing that we could reference, because I doubt we'll have a reason to talk about it again, but the most recent film of Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, it lost out to that Flow film.
Mm-hmm. Which is another film that's very dialogue light, by which I mean none.
But it wasn't made by a studio. It was made by a guy in his house.
I mean, like, I feel like one of the things that started to happen more recently, and they're still not perfect about it, is, like, you look at the first 10 years of the Best Animated Feature Oscar, and it took them forever to realize that countries other than America and Japan make animated films. Like, you have the Triplets of Belleville in 2003, and The Secret of Kells in 2009, and that is it for non-English, for, like, except for America, Britain, and Japan. That's it. And I guess Secret of Kells is Ireland proper. But they started to, like, recognize, There's Chico and Rita. There's the Illusionist. Okay, yeah, they got there. There's Wreck-It Ralph, my opinion of which remains very controversial. I don't know. Like the best animated feature Oscar is usually the only opportunity I get to talk about kids movies, but unlike Toy Story 4 last time, this one doesn't really have a lot to chew on. It's a popcorn film. It's very tasty popcorn, but and that's not an insult.
It's a bit film.
Yeah, it's 85 minutes and it feels like 85 minutes and that's all it needs to be. Here's 85 minutes of really good solid gags. Movie's over. Go home.
Yeah, it's a well constructed pastiche of horror films for British children. Well, American because it was made in Hollywood, but whatever.
I have to assume that if you were the right age to watch this when you were an actual kid, this would be there are I have no evidence of this other than just like my instinct, but there are probably a bunch of 20 somethings right now for whom this was like their favorite film growing up. They one of those movies that you just watch incessantly and go back and engage with as an adult and go like, yeah, that was fun, which is good. The emotion of realizing that something you liked as a kid isn't good, that sucks.
It is still incredibly funny to me that, Wallace has always been an inventor of different degrees, but, you know, seeing him whip out a fucking mind control device, he just happened to one day think it's just like, oh, yes, I'll make a mind control device.
I do have in my notes a line that got a big laugh out of me. It's just a harmless bit of mind control.
That was bananas.
Yeah, this is the same guy who made a rocket in his backyard over the course of like 3 hours, and it went to the fucking moon.
Which turns out is made of cheese. Yeah, it's a good one. Callie, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
No.
No, nothing. You no Blue Sky or Tumblr or
Uh,
Dark
you can
Universe.
find all my social. What?
Nothing. Good.
I heard that. I processed it.
Listen. You can do that, and I will love you for it. I will roast you for it, however.
I'm not gonna do it because I'm not gonna let you roast me. I'm gonna not.
I just did.
Too late. I'm not gonna do it.
You come pre-roasted. Go do your plugs.
Well, you can find all my social media links in my link tree below with the podcast description. All the things that I enjoy and love can be found there. And yeah, take care of your fellow person and be good and be kind.
Excellent. Justin, would you like to make me laugh with whatever your plug is this week?
My plug this week is the stupid crank thing they use to start their car.
What?
I love you, Justin.
You're great.
As always, you can find me, Ellie, on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos with dashes between the words. You can find me on Blue Sky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42. And you can find this podcast on Blue Sky at Biggest Night Pod. We are available on both Spotify and YouTube. And if you follow us on YouTube, be sure to give us a subscribe, maybe like and comment on the video so that you can tell me which parts you like and which parts you don't. And thank you both for coming out. That's our episode on Curse of the Were Rabbit, a little on the short side, but so's the movie.
Yeah.
But what would we feel like is the opposite of a kids movie? For our next episode, we are going to be talking about Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Hope to see you there.
Ellie, I have to read you that review of Moulin Rouge that got a chuckle out of me.
Fire away. We will end the episode on that.
Yeah, and if you're doing Terminator, obviously the close shave because of the robot dog in that.
Oh, right.
This movie feels like someone grabbing you by both ears and screaming directly into your face for 2 hours.
That's fair.
I disagree, but they're allowed to have their opinion.
No, I don't know if I'd consider that a compliment or an insult, but that's fair.
They don't like it, I can promise you.
See you next time.